share my screen and we will jump right into it. So I'm John Corsick here in Atlanta, Georgia. Unfortunately, the Falcons not in the tournament this year, but what can I say? So for the next 30 minutes, I'm going to take you through a really dynamic presentation, Checkpoint, Armis, and Atlantic Data Systems. But since we are getting started here, and I'm hitting the enter button, and your screen sharing. Oh, there we go. We have a few Super Bowl questions. So you can actually use these trivia questions at your Super Bowl party or with your kids and show them just how much you know about the Super Bowl. So the first question is, which team has had the most Super Bowl wins? Which team has had the most Super Bowl wins? And since we're going to do this quickly, you could put it in the chat, but I'm going to tell you. Now you're thinking, it is the Pittsburgh Steelers with 6 wins. And I wonder if anyone got that. Someone said go Bucks. Okay, next question. A bit more obscure, and I seem to have a delay here on my Zoom, so I'm not sure why this is. When I hit the enter button, it's not. Oh my goodness. And I'm in presentation mode, folks, so this should be working, but we're having a severe delay here, and I'm not sure why. And I have fast pipes in my house too. There we go. How many footballs are used in the Super Bowl? How many footballs do you think? 30, 40, 50, 72. That's a lot. Next question. What was the highest scoring Super Bowl of all time? Was it 30-20? Was it 35-32? I'll tell you what it was. It was Super Bowl 29 that happened between San Francisco and the San Diego Chargers. And then finally, keeping with the theme of food, how many chicken wings do Americans eat during the Super Bowl? How many? A lot. 1.3 billion chicken wings are consumed on Super Bowl Sunday. So there you have it. Some Super Bowl questions. As you're gathering around at the food, you can just kind of dish out and say, you know how many people eat chicken wings during Super Bowl? So there you go. So into our presentation. Powerful devices have revolutionized the way we live. And let's just talk about this for 1 second. How many devices, IoT devices, do you think there are right now in the world? How many? And I'm talking about everything that's out there that attaches to the internet, that has an IP address that is basically accessible to the internet. And that's everything. 25 billion devices. So if we do the math, that's about 4 devices for every man, woman, and child on the planet. And it's growing exponentially. By 2025, it's estimated we'll have 75 million IoT devices out there. So what we've done to try to protect those, we've introduced a lot of new endpoint solutions to the fray. You think of companies like ourselves that have been in business, Checkpoint, for 29 years. We've been in the endpoint game for quite a long time, but there's quite a few new players as well, all to protect everything that's on the edge and as endpoint devices proliferate. But as we focus on those IT assets, and as we focus on all the things that are connected, what we're seeing is there's a vast array of devices that are out there. And what we're seeing is that we're seeing not only in IT, the number of devices that are out there, but we're also seeing it in other industries, such as power and gas and utilities and medical devices. And this is all contributing to a massive conundrum of, gee, where are all these devices? How can I understand what they're doing? Are they secure? What are they doing on my network? Who's using them? And how long have they been on the network? I mean, that is the chaos and uncertainty that IT professionals and security professionals basically are faced with all the time. So we've asked, a number of people, Armis and ourselves, what's that risk of exposure? I, in the last 3 weeks, have had three conversations with CIOs of very large organizations. And one of the things that is very top of mind is business outcome for the CIO. But quite frankly, you can't have business outcome unless your systems are up and running. And they do not know where all these threats are coming from. They simply cannot get their arms around it. So what I'm going to show you today is our solution combined with Armis's power of discovery on how we solve this conundrum, how we solve this problem of finding out where the risk is coming from, who's on the network, identify and authenticate that information, and then be able to remediate it and put policies against it. So let's take a look at the numbers. First, we can see that attacks are coming faster. And what I mean by this is that the average days to exploit a vulnerability has gotten very quick. We are seeing, all these attacks happening at an increased rate. And they're happening from not only just bad actors, but they're happening from countries. I mean, literally some of the countries that we are in competition with in the world, China, Russia, and others, they have, very sophisticated technology to allow them to basically wage a cyber war on the United States. You combine that with what I talked about just a few minutes ago, and that's the explosion of the number of devices out there, and you have an amalgam of a big, big problem that needs to be solved as far as security for IoT devices. So the way that CheckPoint approaches this is that we have taken not only our technology, but we have partnered with world-class technology providers like Armis, and also using very, very good resellers that are in this phase that are in the security like Atlantic Data. And we've come up with 3 pillars of IoT security. The first is doing IoT discovery and risk analysis. And we do that with Armis. So I want you to, if you take away one thing from this presentation, remember this: you can't protect what you don't know. You really can't. So let's talk about a little bit about what Armis does and who they are. Armis is a privately held company, but they're growing quite quickly. They've been funded by a number of venture capitalists, and their funding is now north of $500 million. They're valued at $3.4 billion. They have over 500 employees, and quite frankly, they have better than 25% of the Fortune 100 as customers. What they do is they provide a technology that allows you visibility into all the assets that are in your corporation and touching your corporation. Furthermore, after they provide visibility in that, they can actually identify and categorize what those devices are, what they're doing, what the IP addresses are, how long they've been on that network, your network, if they're communicating with something else wirelessly outside of your network, and then giving you a risk profile, which you can then start the next 2 pillars. And I'll talk about that in 1 minute. So let's take a look at the chaos and uncertainty. I mean, this is just kind of a picture of what's in a typical corporate Fortune environment, or even an SMB environment. You're going to have tools, and you're going to have a lot of tools. And some of them you see here, a lot of them are in the cloud, some of them are on-prem, some reside in your data center, and some are on your mobile devices. But you're going to have a lot of data, and you're going to have a lot of access to data. Depending on what industry you're in, you're going to see the complexity either go up to the right, or you're going to see it in a way that you don't know what's going on. And there's a lot of uncertainty. What Armis allows you to do is to take all of those assets and understand exactly what you have on your network. So how do they do that? It's done by a combination of world-class AI software, which they developed, that runs in the cloud, and by putting a sensor on your network, which allows you to passively listen to all the traffic coming across the network, and then being able to take that information, correlate that to the database that they have, which this database, by the way, has over 1 billion devices in there, and then use their magic of AI to say, yep, this is a camera, and this is where it is, this is the manufacturer, this is how it's behaving, And this is how it should behave compared to all the other cameras that are in the database that they have cataloged with all of their customers around the world. It's amazing stuff. So Armis Collector basically gathers that information, they bring it up into the cloud, and then what they do is then recommend, they take objects and bring it down to CheckPoint, and they recommend policies. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. But it's just not discovery. It's also risk analysis. Armis can get very granular on the devices that they see. For example, in this particular slide, we see an MRI device. We know that, it is made by X manufacturer. So I'll just pick one, Shimatsu, who makes an MRI device. We know that it's in this area of the hospital. We know that it's being utilized between the hours of 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. That's the normal behavior, and that's when they do the scans. If anything gets outside of that, if there's an anomaly that gets outside of that, Armis will be able to understand exactly what that anomaly is with that device and be able to flag that and send an alert to CheckPoint's firewalls and CheckPoint's intelligent gateways and firewalls, so it allows us to enforce policies. So some of the things that we see all the time with devices that don't have endpoint technology on it, weak passwords, outdated firmware, and vulnerabilities. I'll give you a good example. For the industrial world, okay? And this is any manufacturer. So let's just pick Nissan. Nissan's in Brentwood, Tennessee. They make cars there. So they have a lot of robotics, a lot of automation. And what do those robotics have in it? Well, they have software, and then they have controller boards, which have circuitry on it. Software controls the circuitry. And these two things are integrated to show how the robotic arms move and how they build cars automated on the assembly line. Guess what? Those manufacturers of those robotics did not design those things with security in mind. So when they ship that to Nissan, and when they get this, they have a great robotic device. It's controlled by software and it's done through automation, but you can't patch it. And the software that's on that is embedded into the chips of that robotic arm. So what happens when you put that stuff on a network? Good question. It becomes vulnerable. You can actually come in through the back door, grab the IP address of that device, and you can hack it, and you can get into basically anywhere into the company at that point. So how do you protect yourself from that? Well, first you do the discovery to understand what you have. Secondly, you do the analysis to understand how it's behaving. And thirdly, you do that to understand what the risk is. So let's talk about a little bit about zero trust segmentation, because this is how you remediate these problems once you get the information that Armis does. So Armis is going out, discovering all this information and providing it back to us. Now you got to do something with it. So I'm going to take a minute and talk about this. This word drives me crazy. It does. Every vendor in security uses either 0-day or zero trust. All of us, okay? Zscaler, Cisco, Palo, Fortinet, everybody talks about it. And guess what? When you go out there, you see all these words and you go, what does this really mean? So what I did, I actually went out and read every vendor's white paper on what it is. And here's what zero trust really is practically to companies. It is the concept that allows you to identify everything that's on your network. So let's think about what's on your network. It's packets of information, okay? So packets of information, ones and zeros moving across your network. Identify what that is, then analyze what that is, and then authenticate what that is before it moves on to the next place on your network, okay? So you're basically identifying, analyzing, authenticating before it moves on. So if I'm logging in from my mobile device, it knows that I'm John Korsick. It understands that this is my Apple phone. It's going to go through basically the endpoint security that's on my phone, which is our technology, CheckPoints. It's going to validate it. It's going to do two-way authentication. And I don't get on our network unless I put in a passcode and it understands who I am, what I am, and then I can get into our systems. That's zero trust. It doesn't, if someone else grabs this phone and they don't authenticate it the way they're supposed to, that's going to happen. So what's really the beauty about Armis and CheckPoint is we are working from this premise down, okay? Understanding what devices you have on your network, understanding who's using them, understanding what those devices are doing, understanding when they touch the network, authenticating them, understanding the risk, and then allowing that information to flow. Okay, so endpoint security policy working for you. Actually, Armis can collect data from everywhere, and they can consolidate all that data and put it into their collective intelligence and understand what's going on. I'm going to talk a little bit about, once that happens, it comes into CheckPoint, and we have a IoT policy builder in our firewalls. So our firewalls and our gateways are intelligent. Not only do they have those capabilities, but they're also connected. If you put software in it, and the software is a blade that connects up to our threat cloud. Our threat cloud has been around for years, and literally this stuff has looked at all the threats that are going on around the world. So Log4j, it was a topical thing here over the last few weeks. You know who found out who that first? It's CheckPoint. Now, we don't make any lame claim to, wow, look at us, we found this threat. We do it every day. And we do a service to all the other security vendors that are out there and say, look, this is a major threat. And once you know it, everybody was on it. And, quite frankly, it was validated. Our threat cloud is the intelligence on the back end combined with the discovery on the front end, which gives you a very, very powerful solution. I'm going to give you an anecdote of a customer. Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about that and the severity of this. So there's a hospital in the Southeast. They got breached. Right now, they're going through some pretty sensitive stuff. So how bad was that breach? It brought down 850 servers. 850 servers. They lost patient data. Okay, that's a big deal. So imagine you go in for heart surgery. Okay, and the next day, you find out all the data of all the scans and everything else that had all your records, they've all been lost. It happened to them. It did. It took them not weeks, but months to rebuild all those servers. Their insurance went up through the roof. And guess what? They had a lot of good stuff. They had CrowdStrike, they had Proofpoint, they had firewalls. So how did they get breached? Guess what? The bot, okay, and this is after they did the forensics analysis of how did they get breached. The bot that created that breach sat on their network for 11 months. 11 months. So the network guys, they got Rapid7 and all these other tools and looking at it. That just looks like normal flow of information, ones and zeros across the net, nothing too big, no anomalies. It just was flowing through. And guess what? When the time was right, boom. I submit to you today, right now, there are bots on people's networks that they do not know about. And it's just a matter of time before that's pulled. It's going to happen. And we know it's going to happen because we talk to people like this all the time. So how will you become aware of the bots? Well, okay, first of all, you got to know it's on your network. You certainly do. Then you have to have anti-bot technology, which we provide. And you got to combine them. And this is the power of doing this. So I'm going to come back to another example. Cameras. They're ubiquitous. They're everywhere. Here in Atlanta, I just read last night, we have more security cameras in Atlanta than any other city in the United States. Unbelievable. Where's all that information go? How are they consolidating? How are they protecting it? Who knows? But what Armis does is they can allow you to see, what these cameras are, how they're behaving, and then recommend policies. And this is actually a screenshot of our firewall and our security council, which will make recommendations on how you can actually activate, or you can quarantine, or you can virtually patch any of these devices. So let's look at another case study. The name of the company is not there, but if you look at the orange and the pallets, you probably could figure it out. Okay, so Armis's customer, this particular customer, believe it or not, had a big problem. And what it was just getting all of the network devices on their network. Think about your typical super big retailer where you buy these kind of things, okay? Quite frankly, I mean, it is just difficult to keep track of everything coming in and out. So what they were able to do is put Armis in, and they were able to increase their scanning of their assets by 95%. And, quite frankly, they were able to do stuff that would take them weeks. They reduced it down to hours. So this is a great thing for this particular retailer. It put them in state-of-the-art security posture, which it didn't have before. So I'm going to talk about the last pillar here. And this particular pillar is prevention. So you can't have prevention unless you believe in taking care of the thing before it happens. Let's go back to the hospital I just talked about. It had plenty of security things in there. But I mean, did they do threat detection? No, they were doing prevention, not detection. And this is the real key. So we have technology, CheckPoint, that works in accordance with Armis that'll allow you to not only see these devices, but to be able to quarantine them, be able to patch them, be able to do a lot of things that you would not have capabilities of, and it's automated. So I was recently at a company here in Atlanta, and this is a lot of companies. They don't have enough people. The Great Resignation has affected everybody. So people that are a bit older decided not to come back. And the one company I was speaking with, they lost half their security people and pretty much a lot of their intelligence that went with it. So yes, they hired some new, younger people, but they didn't understand, how to do all of these different things as far as patching, virtual patching, and how to do remediation. So we're working with them, and quite frankly, they're a great candidate for Armis to come in and do the discovery to help them out and give them some tools to do more with less. I'll give you one other case study. So this here is Tampa, and there is a county that Tampa's in, and this is that county. And quite frankly, I mean, they bought Armis. We did a proof of concept there, and in 2 weeks, we were able to complete this proof of concept, and they were bought into, not only the value that it brought, but also the continuous monitoring and the ability to do compliance, which they did not have capabilities for. So they were able to do security policies now within hours and days, where it took them weeks and months. So do less, do more with less. So those are the 3 pillars of comprehensive IoT security. And I want to just wind up here this morning and say, why Armis and CheckPoint? First, you need visibility into what you have. You got to understand what's touching your network. When I ask security CISOs and when I ask CIOs, give me a guess of what you think you got. Give me a percentage. The typical answer is, I think I see about 60 to 70%. The reality is it's even less, especially if it's a Fortune 500 company. So you get insight. So it not only understand what those devices are, you understand what they're doing and give you risk mitigation capabilities, and then you can take action. The combined aspect of taking discovery, ingesting that into CheckPoint, taking our threat cloud, which has intelligence and AI capabilities on the back end, and melding all that together gives an end-to-end security posture that no one else in the world can provide. This stuff works. It's helping many companies. You can see them in the background here, kind of faded away. And I'll tell you what, the tsunami is coming. We have not yet crossed the chasm for IoT devices. So if you think about Jeffrey Moore's Crossing the Chasm, we're still in the early adopters phase. But in 2022 and 2023, we're going to see more companies make this an absolute security rotation and policy of going out and understanding what's on the network. So I would implore you at the end here, and here's what we can do for you. And I'm going to put Rusty up here in a second, is we can do pro bono IoT security assessments with Armis. So what is that? A IoT security assessment. We'll come in, we'll put Armis in your environment, and we will take it for a test drive. So no cost, no obligation. And working with Atlantic Data, CheckPoint, and Armis, we will allow you to go out and understand what's on that network and give you visibility and insight into your organization that you didn't have previously. From there, we can have a great business discussion on what is your objectives, how can we make you more secure, how can you make the board, because this is part of the board conversations now with every company, understand that they feel like you're doing everything that you need to do to make your environment secure. We'll do this for you. So I would implore you to reach out to us and take it for a test drive. So right with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to turn everything over to our wonderful friends at Atlantic Data Systems and let them talk a little bit.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it. I hope everyone enjoyed the presentation. A lot of good information. We've worked with Armis. Of course, we've been a long-time CheckPoint partner. We've worked with Armis and CheckPoint on a lot of opportunities, and it really brings a lot of good value and to the customers. And if you're struggling to get a hold on your IoT environment, just like John said, it's a no-brainer. The proof of value is easy to set up. So thanks, John. Appreciate it. I'm not going to take a long time. So a lot of you know who Atlantic Data is. For those that you don't, we've been around since about 1993, over 400 customers in the Northeast. We expanded down into the Southeast in 2020. I've got Central Florida North. We've got a rep, Steve Charlton, who's on the call. He covers South Florida. I cover Georgia as well. We've got reps in the Carolinas and Virginia. So really covering the Southeast. We are 100% security focused. The slide you see here, John, are you sharing your screen? No. John, you're on mute. All right, never mind. So, why ADS, whether it's a simple one-time security assessment, if you need vCISO services, if you need help writing a full cybersecurity program, we can help you with that through our consultative services. The average tenure for our principal engineers and architects is 20 years in the business. So you're not going to get that first level guy who's going to have to constantly escalate it. We're flexible, we're agile. We're small enough that we can write, custom sales for your organization or agreements and deliver what you need and what's the best solution for you, not a one size fits all. From security essentials like cloud security, parameter security with firewalls, all the way to consultative services like I spoke of, CMMC readiness for those of you that are going to deal with the federal government, pen testing, et cetera. And lastly, the thing I'll talk about is our service desk offering. It's called Support Aware. This is your ability to buy a bulk of hours. Let's say it's 5 hours. Let's say it's 40 hours, and it's spread across a security spectrum, right? So it's not just firewall help. You're not dealing with a staff aug that's going to be pigeonholed into only helping you with your CheckPoint firewalls, right? Or your Armor solution. We've got security experts with different disciplines across the whole security spectrum, and you have the ability to use those hours as you see fit, whether it's vCISO hours or whether it's solution architecting or just policy review. And in a nutshell, that's it for ADS. Like John said, reach out to us. We can certainly assist you with getting a POV for Armis set up and running. And I think you're going to see value within minutes of it being online. Thanks.